The hostage-taker chose the single dad. The billionaire woman had no idea he was a former Navy SEAL. The first scream echoed through the grand ballroom just seconds after the crystal chandelier sparkled beneath the bright afternoon sun pouring through towering windows. Elegant conversations vanished into terrified silence as armed men stormed the charity gala, forcing hundreds of wealthy guests to their knees. A billionaire's annual fundraiser had become a nightmare in broad daylight. But among the frightened crowd stood one quiet single father who refused to let fear control him. The hostage-taker pointed directly at him, believing he had chosen the weakest man in the room. What no one knew, not even the powerful billionaire woman hosting the event, was that the humble father had once survived impossible missions as a Navy SEAL. His greatest battle, however, had never been on a battlefield. It had been learning how to raise his little daughter alone after losing everything that mattered. Before we continue this unforgettable story, if you believe kindness, courage, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who loves inspiring stories, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Your support helps us continue bringing emotional stories that remind the world hope still exists. Gideon Hale had not planned to attend the fundraiser. He worked quietly as a marine safety instructor, living in a modest house near the coast with his 8-year-old daughter, Nora. Years earlier he had left the military after countless classified missions that no newspaper would ever print. His wife had passed away from an illness while he was deployed overseas, leaving him carrying a guilt that never truly faded. Every morning his only mission was making sure Nora smiled before school. She believed her father was simply strong because he always carried groceries with one hand and fixed everything around the house. She had no idea he once carried wounded teammates through enemy fire. The invitation arrived unexpectedly after Gideon had rescued a young boy from drowning during a weekend sailing lesson. Someone had recorded the rescue, and the video quietly reached the foundation of billionaire entrepreneur Celine Ashcroft. Known for funding children's hospitals and veteran charities, Celine wanted to honor everyday heroes during her annual daytime gala. Gideon accepted only because the event included donations for military families. He wore an ordinary gray shirt and stood awkwardly among expensive suits and designer dresses, feeling completely out of place. Celine noticed him only briefly. She assumed he was another quiet guest uncomfortable among the wealthy elite. She admired how he politely refused special attention and spent more time talking to charity volunteers than influential investors. Unknown to her, that quiet confidence came from years of discipline learned under unimaginable pressure. Then everything changed. 5 armed criminals burst through the main entrance, blocking every exit before security could react. Their leader demanded access to encrypted financial accounts connected to several billionaire donors. Panic spread instantly. Guests dropped to the polished marble floor as frightened whispers filled the magnificent ballroom. Crystal glasses shattered while alarms echoed through the building. Outside, police quickly surrounded the estate, but inside every second became more dangerous. The gang leader searched the crowd carefully before grabbing Gideon by the arm. He saw an ordinary father wearing inexpensive clothes, and decided this man would become the example that kept everyone obedient. Gideon was dragged into the center of the room with a rifle pressed against his chest while terrified guests looked away, expecting tragedy. Instead of panicking, Gideon quietly studied every detail. He counted the attackers, measured distances between pillars, noticed reflections in decorative mirrors, watched which criminal seemed nervous, and identified every possible escape route. His breathing remained steady. Years of training returned without effort, but his eyes revealed something different now. They no longer belonged to a warrior eager for battle. They belonged to a father desperate to return home alive to his daughter. Celine watched in disbelief. She expected pleading or fear, yet Gideon's calmness seemed almost impossible. For the first time she wondered who this quiet man truly was. Negotiations outside dragged on while tension inside grew worse. One frightened elderly guest collapsed from a heart condition. Without hesitation, Gideon convinced the criminals to allow medical attention. Even while surrounded by rifles, he calmly guided another guest through emergency first aid, saving the man's life. His compassion confused everyone, including the hostage-takers. They saw courage where they expected weakness. Hours passed beneath the bright afternoon sunlight streaming through the enormous windows. One young criminal began shaking uncontrollably. He could not have been older than 20. Gideon recognized the fear hidden beneath the weapon. Instead of insulting him, he spoke with calm respect about families waiting at home and how one terrible decision could destroy every future. Those words quietly reached the frightened young man's heart. Meanwhile, Celine realized Gideon was deliberately keeping everyone calm. Parents comforted children because he encouraged hope. Elderly guests found strength because he reminded them to breathe slowly. Even complete strangers began helping one another instead of surrendering to panic. Courage had become contagious. Everything exploded into motion when the youngest criminal lowered his weapon and refused another violent order. Chaos erupted among the hostage-takers themselves. Gideon instantly acted. Using perfect timing developed through years of elite training, he disarmed the nearest attacker without unnecessary violence, protected nearby civilians behind heavy banquet tables, and created the opening police tactical teams had been waiting for. Within moments, the remaining criminals surrendered as officers secured the ballroom. Silence replaced terror. Paramedics rushed inside while relieved families embraced one another. Reporters crowded outside expecting interviews with billionaires, but every camera soon focused on the quiet single father who tried slipping away unnoticed before anyone recognized him. Celine finally learned the truth from federal officers. Gideon Hale had once served with extraordinary distinction as a Navy SEAL before choosing retirement to become the father his daughter deserved. He had never mentioned his past because he wanted people to respect the life he lived now, not the battles he had survived before. Deeply moved, Celine visited Gideon's small coastal home several days later. She found him repairing Nora's old bicycle beneath the warm afternoon sunshine, while laughing at her attempts to tighten bolts with oversized tools. There were no luxury cars, no bodyguards, only a loving father teaching resilience through simple moments. Instead of offering money, Celine proposed something greater. Together, they launched a foundation providing scholarships for children of fallen service members and emergency support for single parents rebuilding their lives. Gideon accepted because he knew true heroism continued long after danger ended. Every family helped by the foundation became another victory far greater than any military medal. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like the video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise so more people can discover stories that remind us courage and compassion still exist in our world. Special request, please comment below and tell us, what do you think makes a true hero? Strength, kindness, or sacrifice? Months later, the ballroom where fear once ruled hosted another charity event filled with laughter instead of panic. This time Gideon attended with Nora proudly holding his hand. She looked up at her father with admiration, never caring about medals or secret missions. To her, the greatest hero had always been the man who packed her school lunch, read bedtime stories, wiped away tears, and never stopped believing tomorrow could be brighter. Everyone else finally understood what she had known all along. The strongest people are often the quietest, the greatest heroes rarely seek recognition, and sometimes one act of courage, guided by kindness, can change hundreds of lives forever.